They're trying to hack the fourth and higher dimensions, and they're using us as the crowbar.
For some time now, I've been saying that I believe they are trying to hack the psychoid layer, the fourth dimension, and even higher dimensions, if you want to think of it in that context. That they're trying to control our reality manifestation abilities, and I've said this before on the show, and many other people can attest to this as well, that they want to hack our consciousnesses so they can build an alternate world. And I mean that in a much broader and deeper sense than people really truly realize. They're blind and deceived. Therefore, they can't get the downloads that, we get. Therefore, they need us who have the vision, who have the reality manifestation abilities to build the world that they can't. And in this video, I'm going to try to, through various articles and videos, just split very cleanly, I'm going to try to explain how they're using us as the crowbar to hack these higher dimensions and get access to the fourth dimension and some of that extra dimensional information. You won't hear from me much. You will see articles. You will see primarily videos, things that talk about researchers theorizing how our brains are building the universe, people talking about the fourth dimension, things such as this, and me just trying to get across the idea that they're gamifying the collective consciousness. They're coming up with ways that go beyond predictive programming. You see.
What if your consciousness gives rise to space, time, and matter, not the other way around? A controversial 2025 paper suggests that the mind may precede the material world. In other words, consciousness is a fundamental field from which reality takes shape. Aside from reshaping what we know about our own consciousness, this theory could completely change our understanding of major events like the Big Bang. According to the theory, the Big Bang may not mark the moment that the universe erupted into existence. Instead, it could be when a universal field of awareness turned a formless state into the dense world that we observe every day. Now, this isn't the first time that physicists have made the wild argument that the mind comes first, but that doesn't mean that the theory goes without criticism.
Quantum information panpsychism is a theory that I created together with Professor Giacomo Mauro D'Ariano, who is an expert in quantum field theory and quantum information, that starts with the idea that quantum fields are conscious and have free will. And so you, instead of having consciousness and free will, perhaps free will not even existing like most physicists believe, and consciousness like a property of brains, this theory promotes the idea and explains why we should start with consciousness and free will as at the beginning of the universe, as properties that cannot be reduced to matter and to anything else. They must be primitives of the universe.
Which is the wonderful title of your book, Irreducible.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so, but to get to that point, which is a radical statement, I'm not accusing you of anything unusual by saying it's a radical statement. So, what are the assumptions that you're making that lead you to come to that initial idea about materialism, physicalism, information, quantum, life, consciousness? What are those foundational ideas from which you build to get that theory?
Yes, first of all, it is impossible, I myself try very hard, but no one has been able to explain how consciousness could emerge from matter which is not conscious. Consciousness is such a property that that goes beyond what any kind of energy, space, time we know. It transcends any of those properties. Therefore, you cannot get more with less, in other words. So you have to start with more. And of course, once there is consciousness, in order to be operational, needs free will, in order to act in the world in a way that, because it allows fields to know what they want. And if a field knows what it wants, then it must act with free will, which is also a property we have. Obviously, we are constrained by a body, so we cannot do whatever we want. But fundamentally, free will means that you can decide what to observe and convert into an experience, a conscious experience, and also what of your experience to convert back into symbols to communicate, shareable symbols to communicate with other fields.
I'm about to tell you everything you need to know about quantum physics in under 60 seconds. Quantum physics isn't just science, it's logical spirituality. You don't attract what you want, you align with what you already are. That's what it means to tap into the quantum field, where every single version of you already exists. The wealthy you, the rich you, the happy you, they are already there in the quantum field. If it's in your heart, that means that version of you already exists, and it's just your job now to tune into that frequency. And your reality will rearrange to match that frequency. You're never experiencing the world, you are only experiencing your nervous system's interpretation of it. Let me say that again. You are never experiencing the world, you are only experiencing your nervous system's interpretation of it. That's why two people can experience the same thing and have two completely different interpretations of it. Your thoughts and emotions broadcast a frequency that your life then mirrors back to you. The quantum field does not respond to begging, it responds to certainty. So if you can fully see it in your mind, your body starts living like it's already real. Your most powerful tool is visualization, because our minds do not know the difference between imagination and reality. Time is not linear, so you can pull your future into the now and you can recode your past. Everything is accessible right now. Lastly, you are not a person inside the universe. You are the universe experiencing itself through you. So go act and live like the miracle that you are.
The highest form of intelligence isn't IQ. According to neuroscience, the rarest form of intelligence is something entirely different. Most people never reach it, and those who do quietly outgrow everyone around them. The highest form of intelligence is metacognition, the ability to observe your own thoughts, not reacting instantly, not living on autopilot, but watching your thoughts as they happen. Most people don't do this. They react, they repeat, they stay the same. But the moment you pause and observe your own thinking, something deeper begins to happen. Neuroscientists have found that a specific part of your brain activates, the anterior prefrontal cortex. This region isn't built for action. It's not for movement or reaction. It exists to observe. When it activates, your attention turns inward. You're no longer inside the thought, you're looking at it, and that changes everything. You start to notice patterns. You interrupt reactions. Most people never reach this point. They stay on autopilot, repeating the same loops without ever seeing them. But the ones who do evolve faster than everyone else.
So Epstein, he buys up all these scientists. They get laid off down there in New Mexico, and he buys them all up and he starts hiring them. And he does it for edge.org. What they're trying to do is they're trying to solve the psychoid layer. The psychoid layer is like where you know the world is magic. Like you know this is a realm of God. But you forget and you go back to work to make money, to pay the bills, and you get into the toil of things. But you really know that it's a spiritual realm. But they know it's a spiritual realm. They don't have a secondary thing. They already have all the money, so they're just figuring out what the psychoid is. So the way that they would try to solve the psychoid is through the wave interference pattern. The wave interference pattern is where they shoot these electrons through these two slits. And as you observe the electron, it stays in physical form. But if you're not observing it, the electrons turn into waves, and the waves can split between slits, and whenever they go through, they bounce off each other, and then those waves bounce and those waves bounce, and it causes a wave interference pattern. That's not exact, but that's the basics behind it. Because I don't want some asshole telling me, let's roll this slightly this. I know what it is. Because the reason I know what it is because that's what they're studying, and they're studying the way that these fractal patterns happen in reality. And once you understand that, you kind of can understand that money isn't real. It's an illusion. But you believe it's real, but really it's energy, and it's these little energy bubbles that exist beyond the veil of consciousness. Beyond the veil are energy bubbles, and in the energy bubbles, they have modalities, and these modalities have codes that are not changeable, but you can project onto them through these waves and call it a submodality, which slightly changes the energy. So you're broke, you're poor, you have money, you don't have money. It's not real. And try your best. Something happens. That's the way it is. That's why you have $10,000 and you're like, saved it up. Whoops, the motor blown up. I have zero. Because it's energy. It's a flow of energy. So they want to solve that, and they also want to solve the translatory language beyond the Yoganandan dialect, this language that gets spoken, grunts and symbols from the ancient times, which form onto these modalities symbols that have entanglements, and those entanglements have emotional charge and all this stuff. And it's too much for the human mind. Like, you can see it happening. You can watch it happening, and people can walk along with me and they'll be like, oh my God, that's freaking, no way that you could do that. No way. But it's just because it's just really obvious. It's really obvious.
Can you talk to us about multidimensionality? Is that a kind of place where consciousness can exist in a different dimension? What are the choices for other dimensions besides, the sort of X, Y, Z plane and time?
There's this beautiful quote by Arthur Eddington, early 20th century physicist, who said that the universe is not only stranger than we suppose, but it's stranger than we can suppose. So I think it's fun to explore some of these things that really stretch our own visualizations of how all this works. So we were just talking about the expansion of, the physical size of the universe. Just to go back to that balloon for a second to help us visualize what's about to come. So if you imagine the surface of a balloon, right, all the parts are moving on that balloon further away. But the expansion of the balloon isn't happening on the surface, it's actually happening in the middle of the balloon, right? So that would be like a two-dimensional surface, all the parts are moving away, but it's expanding into 3 dimensions. So that's the kind of picture that you think of for our universe, is that our universe is 3-dimensional, but it's expanding into 4 dimensions. And now this is where, at least for me, my brain kind of stops, because you think, what does it mean to have 4 dimensions, right? How would we have, up, down, side to side, and whatever else is happening? That mathematically is really easy to write down, but our human minds, based on just all of our experience in the world to date, can't really visualize what that would be like. So the analogies that you could sort of play with is you could imagine, what would it be like if we imagined, instead of our 3D world, a 2D world, right? What if you lived on the surface of a table, right? What would you see? If you were to see like a 3D creature move through your 2D world, you would only see the cross sections of that, right? Like as it passes through your world, you'd see, as something enters, you'd see a circle of one size get bigger and then smaller again as something moves through. So you'd see sort of a 2-dimensional shadow of a 3-dimensional thing. And mathematically, you can write down exactly that same sort of structure for our universe. You could say, if there were 4 spatial dimensions or more, what kind of 3-dimensional shadows would we see of something that was 4-dimensional that could, move through our universe? In the kind of work that I do in string theory, it's actually essential for the sort of consistency conditions of physics that there are more dimensions than what we see around us. And they don't all have to be the same size. So this is another thing that's sort of hard to imagine. When you say like size of a dimension, what does that mean? So an analogy that I use sometimes is, if you imagine looking at something like a wire, something very thin from far away, it would look like it's only a 1-dimensional object. It has a length. But if you were able to like zoom up really, really close to it, you would see that it has a thickness, right? It has another direction to it. It's actually a 2D surface. So this is a question we can ask in physics, is that our universe looks like it's 3-dimensional, but if you were to zoom in really, really, really small to all the space that we look at, could there be other, like that thickness of the wire, are there other directions that things could move, other directions that energy can move into, that particles could interact with? And then you could ask, what is the consequences of that for physics?
When they say time is a dimension, this is a visualization of that. If we imagine the lit up 2D part to be the present, then the third dimension is time. However, time and spatial dimensions are intrinsically different. You're probably familiar with this figure, the tesseract interacting with our dimension. You may have also heard it referred to as a hypercube. It is both. A hypercube is any cube with dimension 4 or higher, and a tesseract is a 4D cube. This is a hyperpyramid. Boring. A good way to understand a 4D object intersecting with our dimension is first to see what it looks like when a 3D object intersects with the second dimension. If you were to imagine intersecting with the hypersphere, it would appear to be a sphere growing and shrinking. And this is what it may look like if a hypertoroid passed through our dimension.
The first rule of trying to picture things in the fourth dimension is don't try to picture things in the fourth dimension, because no matter how hard you try, you can't get there. Our brains are physically locked into a three-dimensional reality, so trying to force it is just going to give you a headache. But that said, in this video I am going to attempt to tell you what it looks like anyway. Now, to understand the fourth dimension, you just have to imagine a three-dimensional printer. Okay, imagine you are now a completely flat two-dimensional ant living on the plate of a three-dimensional printer. You, as a two-dimensional ant, have absolutely no concept of up or down. You are entirely flat. Now, the machine, it starts printing a normal three-dimensional ball. What do you see? Well, because you are flat, you can only see one microscopic slice at a time. So to you, a tiny flat circle just magically appears and then disappears, and then a bigger circle gets drawn, and then that disappears, a bigger one, and then the circle starts shrinking back down again to a dot and then vanish. To a two-dimensional ant, a three-dimensional ball is just a flat circle that grows and then shrinks. Now let's bump it up a dimension. You are the ant. You are standing inside of a four-dimensional printer, which is about to print a four-dimensional hypersphere into your reality. What do you see? First, a tiny, perfectly solid three-dimensional ball will just pop into existence in front of you, out of thin air. It'll be there for a millisecond, and then, just like that, it vanishes. It has disappeared into an unimaginable fourth dimension. And then instantly, another ball pops in, ever so slightly bigger, and then another. They're popping in and out, growing and growing, until the process starts to reverse and they start shrinking. All of these three-dimensional balls, they are stacking together in a direction that you can't point to build a shape that you cannot imagine. But that isn't even the weirdest part. If you think about shadows, okay, if you shine a torch on a three-dimensional ball, it casts a two-dimensional shadow across the floor. It's a flat, dark circle. Shadow is always one dimension lower than the object, which means, and hold on to your brains here, if a four-dimensional ball was hovering just above our reality, its shadow wouldn't be flat. Its shadow would be a three-dimensional object. It would be a literal three-dimensional floating orb of pure darkness casting a sphere of shade right in front of you. And because physicists think our universe might have up to 26 dimensions, it means that hyperdimensional shadows could theoretically be absolutely everywhere. So, if you ever wake up and see a floating orb of pure absolute darkness hovering at the end of your bed, don't panic. It's probably just a four-dimensional shape passing by. Or a demon. I mean, definitely one of the two.
How do I even ask this? When we're talking other dimensions, what does that mean?
Well, the universe, let's call it the cosmos, it's described by astrophysicists as sort of this 3D thing. Now, if you look at quantum entanglement and the concepts of the universe being a holographic conscious entity, which it is, then you start talking about not just material, but you're also talking about other dimensions that are at refined levels of frequencies and vibration. So the speed of light, the speed of electrons, atoms, what have you, all of that would pertain to what we call the 3D, three-dimensional. If you were to cross over that in frequencies, and this is, again, where you start getting into some very strange WSFM, like I mentioned, phenomenon, then you're talking about other embedded dimensions, but it's not like it's some distant place, it's folded within. So, a hologram, if you look at a hologram of Marilyn Monroe with her dress blowing up, like that, if you were to just zoom in on one little piece of that dress on the edge of her skirt, you and zoom in on it, the entire image would be in there, and zoom in again, it's holographic. So you have to kind of get your mind around the cosmos is this conscious quantum hologram. And so there are many, many, many dimensions, not just this plane of 3 dimension, that is all enfolded within it. So a lot of the confusion happens where everything like something weird, like a poltergeist event, will be conflated with something extraterrestrial. Well, it isn't. You know, it was someone who, like in the ER, I had this happen once, some guy that was killed, couldn't save him, you know, it was murder, and he was angry, and at 3 a.m, he started taking all the stuff out of the cabinets. But he wasn't there, it was just his spirit. Weird stuff. So that kind of phenomenon isn't extraterrestrial, it's interdimensional. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
Okay, so I'm trying to do some very kind of crude analogies, but the confusion comes in is that if you're an interstellar capable civilization, which means you're going from point A in the cosmos to here, B, it's like if this were a piece of paper, you're not going a straight line across the paper, you're folding the paper, being space-time.
Okay.
And so these 2 points are here.
I'm
right?
enlightened now.
And so, but in the process of doing that, this sort of bending and altering space-time, you then bump up against and cross these other dimensions. And this is sort of the intersection between what some people call metaphysics and physics, or the conscious worlds and the worlds of light, if you will, the mystics would call astral, and extraterrestrial technologies. And it's a very interesting intersection. I find that the most interesting part of this whole subject, but it quickly, you have to be, you go in the crazy town way too quickly with a lot of people out there who don't know enough to talk about it intelligently, in my opinion. But it's also dangerous, and here's why it's dangerous. Those capabilities can be technologically stimulated to occur. It's like the Skinwalker Ranch. After a certain cell of this covert group got hold of that thing, they started setting up phenomenon there. It's absolutely man-made, high-end electronics, but interdimensional. It's like the show Stranger Things. I've never seen it, but that's based on some weird stuff that went on at Montauk, on eastern Long Island, the Montauk projects. And we know what those are. I know guys who've been in laboratories where they have a toroid or one of these devices, and suddenly they're pulling in spooky-looking creatures that look like they came out of the 9th ring of hell. And they literally become 3D and are running around the lab. Weird stuff.
Love me higher dimensional aliens. That'd be the funnest thing ever.
Well, believe it or not, I met higher dimensional aliens while I was doing ayahuasca. I'm not even lying, man.
Well, by the way, did you know this? I only knew it researching for my book.
Go ahead.
There's a subset of DMT users that all agree that they're interacting with aliens. And they have formed a subgroup within DMT the user group.
I did not know that.
It's an alien sub, and they want to get together, see if they're actually somehow cross-dimensional communicating with aliens, and they compare notes.
I would say that makes perfect sense, because in my experience, quite frankly, I had, and maybe I did, because here's the thing. I felt like the entire time, first of all, you're not high when you do ayahuasca. That's a misnomer. You are not, a misconception. You're not like, oh my God, I'm tripping my balls off. It's like your brain has been subsectioned, and you're kind of in touch with all of the different sections of your brain. But the whole time I was telling myself, this is my perception. This is all coming from my brain. And the ayahuasca was like, and what difference does that make? In these sacred geometries, there are representations of dimensions that seemingly are infinite, but like I've described before, are like a deck of cards. They're like a deck of cards that go in all directions, but they're dimensions. Some of them larger, some of them smaller, some of them where the communication happens downward, but we're in a crappy dimension where we can't go upwards or outwards. And so we have to be communicated with from above or beside.
Don, why are we in a crappy dimension? It's all your fault.
You know, and listen, I was just like this. I thought the whole time I kept saying to myself, you're high. That's all I kept saying. But the more I talk to people like you, Don, and Brian Greene and Jan 11, this stuff that I really didn't have any knowledge of is kind of the basis of the experience. I'm just saying.
What we discovered is the probability that any sensory system has ever been shaped to see any true feature of objective reality. When you do the math, the answer is 0. Exactly 0.
Well, you realize you're making a very bold claim. Embodied consciousness existing inside bodies, is the exception to the rule. Detachment from the 5 senses actually allows you greater knowledge. A good example being near-death experiences. The amount of things that we don't see in reality, we don't see electric fields. The 8 million species are just the 8 million species that it's adaptive for our survival to see. How do we then try to triangulate and figure out what true reality actually is?
To date, science cannot answer that question. There are an infinite number of alien intelligences. Our headset gives us a very, very, very tiny peek at this, and the recursive trace logic gives us a mathematical framework to begin to understand exactly how our space-time headset is built, how it can be hacked.
Whoa. So it's an infinite scale of consciousness.
That's right. Not in just one direction, in an infinite number of different directions. So this is when we get to the UAP kind of stuff. The craft seems to be here, and then it goes Mach 40. To me, it's like...
When you're poking at the boundaries with your consciousness or with high-energy physics, you see these entities and you see these UFOs. Do you think we're on the verge of a scientific revolution?
If we prove those conjectures are true, then I think it's the game changer.
Like a big X, a field of vision that says no entry. Or there'll be an entity that will wag its finger and say no, no, no. Or they get some kind of message like, you know, you're not welcome here. We're not letting you in. And this is called a lockout. You've been locked out of the DMT space.
Wow.
All right? And so they say, okay, that's pretty startling. And a guy wrote to me, actually, because I kind of probed this a little bit on the online forums and asked people to give me their experiences. And one guy said that he was using DMT, his same batch, as he always does, vaporized in the same manner. And then one day, I forget, it was like a mantis being or some kind of being, just as he entered the space, punched him in the face, and he felt the punch. And he snapped back, and he was back baseline consciousness. The effect was just gone like that. And you get many, many of those kinds of experiences. And it's not, pharmacologically, this is not easy to explain.
No.
Like tolerance is something that builds gradually and fades, whereas this is like an on-off switch. They have, you know, a string of perfectly visual psychedelic DMT states, and then one day they're told you're not coming in. And sometimes that can last for months or years.
Talked about was your experience with non-physical entities.
Yes.
So what do you think that is?
Well, non-physical means it's just not in this virtual reality.
Right.
So there's other virtual realities around, and there's other beings, let's say, that's there. Now, a being, remember, virtual reality is I get a data stream. So not say I'm going out of body now. So I let go of the data stream that's this universe. I grab hold of another data stream. Well, where's this data stream coming from? It's coming from the larger conscious system, just like the data stream that tells me about I'm part of the Earth universe. So I'm now in a different universe. I'm in a different place. Okay?
And this is with your eyes closed.
Eyes closed. I'm no longer in this universe.
You somehow or another taking your consciousness and tuned into another reality.
All it is dropping one data stream, drop another. Let's say you're in World of Warcraft, and you drop that data stream. Instead, you get a data stream from Sims.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, you're not in that World of Warcraft anymore. Now you're in a Sims reality. Okay, there's different data streams. So it's the same thing. All data streams are created by the larger conscious system. It gives me a data stream.
So there's an unlimited number of
Unlimited
data streams.
number. Now what isn't, so that gets us to out of body. What really is an out of body? An out of body is when you let go of this data stream that defines this universe and you pick up a different one. Now you're in a different universe, different things. And why would the larger conscious system do that? It's to teach you something. It's to give you an opportunity to learn, grow, run into things and situations, just like dreaming. Run into things and situations that you have to make choices in, and you grow up. So I get something and think of it as a single-player game with the larger conscious system that is designed to help me grow up. Now, some of that growing up is just opening my mind to the possibilities. So I run into beings. I have conversations with them. We talk about things. Where did they come from? Where did I come from? And that builds a bigger understanding of me, of the possibilities. Sometimes I go to another reality frame that's like this one. And it's, every tiny energy exchange is defined by the rule set. And I've got two options, and I've done both. One option is you can watch it, and then it's like you're the spirit outside looking in, and you can hear and understand what the characters that are in that virtual reality, what those avatars are doing.
Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to a quick ad. That's right. It's a quick ad for your favorite show, Factions of Freedom. I want to say, if you could take the time to go to patreon.com/noise, patreon.com/NOIZCE. That's the best way to support this operation. Once you go there, you can get yourself an exclusive membership. You can get yourself a t-shirt. You can get access to our previous seasons, and you can get access to our group chat. That's right. There's a completely different group chat for the exclusive members, both on Patreon, Instagram, and Telegram. Patreon.com/noise. That's the best way to support this operation. It will also be our central hub where we begin to roll out some of the other cool features that we have in store. As I said before, things like t-shirts, merchandise, nutraceuticals, archived content, and so much more. Patreon.com/NOIZCE. You can also... What's going on, guys? If you like what we're doing over here on TikTok and some of what we're doing over here on Instagram, then you're going to love what we're going to be doing with our Substack. Take the time to jump over there. It's freedomfaction.substack.com. Jump over there, go subscribe, go see the content. We were able to upload all of our podcast episodes so you can get all of the content, all 500 plus episodes. freedomfaction.substack.com. Jump over there right now. Support your boy. There's going to be a lot more coming on that platform. Basically stuff that we can't do on Patreon that we can do on Substack, we're going to be doing it over there. So if you like the videos, you like the content, you like the compilations, you like everything that we're doing, jump over there to Substack and support us over there. Look forward to having even more things take place. Stay vigilant, expose lies, and share truth. This is Noisera, out.
I was given a whole kind of different regimen of like training and teaching that kind of relied primarily on getting our subconscious mind to believe that something was possible. And I can kind of go into this in a little bit more detail. So for like a typical remote viewing exercise, you're given a target, you may have a protocol, maybe you're doing some meditation or some, bilateral simulation or auditory stuff to help you take information out of that target. You might see it visually, you might see it otherwise you're taking information, kind of from the field. In my training, they were more interested with getting me to subconsciously believe that awareness is essentially the substrate of this entire universe. And our awareness can shift into any other piece of awareness in this underlying universe. So what this would mean is, like, instead of trying to remote view into a room, or let's say I remote viewed into a hallway, but I was having issues getting through a door, there was a lot of subconscious training to basically help me understand that my awareness could become the door, I could become the room, I could become the filing cabinet where the documents are in, and then extract the information that way. So it was a lot less viewing, it was a lot more manipulating your own awareness to become the things that we see in the universe.
That's fascinating. So it's almost like a panpsychist worldview or something, where maybe everything is somewhat conscious, or everything is at least awareness, and you can port your own awareness into what we think of as even inanimate, unconscious objects.
It's going to start to reveal that they have now, because their pilots are not, they don't have the particular consciousness that's necessary to do telepathic communication, because they're hardwired into the left brain. They're very linear, they're very mathematical, they're running like a flying computer. They're engineers, they have slide rules and computers. And the fact is, when they put the helmet on them to try to get them to telepathically communicate with the craft, it fries their brain out. And so what they've done is they've lost a number of multi-million-dollar trained U.S. fighter pilots in trying to get them to fly these things. And they've killed them. And then they just keep going back, trying to do it again and experiment with them and kill more of them. And it's all being covered up. And so what they decided that they needed to do is they needed to go find people who are psychic, people who have psychic capabilities of telepathic communication and ESP, etc. And so they go and they try to recruit them. And what they found out is that they didn't dare recruit full adults because they would tell about it, and they didn't want to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and then they go tell somebody. So what they did is they went after children. They set up a program on the military bases where they have military schools for the children of the military people and the workers, and they started giving them tests called the GATE program, the gifted and talented children. Purporting to be looking for the intellectually intelligent kids, but at the same time they were testing them for psychic abilities as well. And when they discovered some of these kids that had these kind of psychic capabilities, they went to their parents and lied to them and said, "Oh, your child is extraordinarily intelligent," which a lot of them were, and we're going to give them a special scholarship, we're going to have a special school we're going to bring them to. And they brought them to this school that is turns out to be on the property of Northrop Grumman, private aerospace corporation, where they test these craft, and they bring the kids there. And the problem is that what they're doing is, because they're so driven to try to create a weapons delivery platform using this technology to deliver nuclear warheads into Russia or China, within seconds. What they're doing is they're so pressed to try to accelerate the program that they're drugging these kids with amphetamines and frying them out, these young children, and then having to conceal what's happened to them. This is a horrible scandal that is going on inside the program. We now know about it, in that they're pleading with us not to tell anybody about it. You'll see how responsive I am to their
So
demand.
it's like, the deal is...
But if she was sent away?
Well, no, she's sent away after this. So they're a poor
Okay.
family. They're living in Denver. All of the people who work at the plant, her father was actually working with the uranium. Her mother was probably a secretary or something.
Okay.
So her father's probably the chief one who comes home with uranium dust on his boots. So as she's growing up, before she reaches the age of
Understood.
7, she's exposed.
So then if she's exposed to it, just exposed to it, it's not like her boots then have uranium on it when she has you.
Yeah.
How are you exposed to it?
I think the idea is not that I was exposed to it.
You're the offshoot of it.
If you were going to study the effects of uranium on people, you would study the next generation. And then I wonder about the drink.
Whoa.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's clocking now. I had to put it
So,
together.
as a cognitive neuroscientist and thinking about human exceptional performance, one of the effects of radiation, whether it's ionizing radiation like uranium or plutonium, or non-ionizing radiation like EMF that we get from our devices all the time, one of the effects of radiation might be extended capacities, like psychic abilities, right? And so I think they were looking for both positive and negative outcomes of exposure to radiation, both within a person's lifetime and, in the womb, right? So a woman's eggs are around even when she's a kid, right? So if a woman is exposed to radiation as a kid, that can cause mutations in the eggs that later manifest themselves when
Weird
she has
stuff.
children.
All right, so the high end of the WSFM is this sort of thing, but that can be used in a deceptive indication and warning. It can be used in a way that everyone on planet Earth would think that it's alien, and it isn't.
I see what you mean.
Okay, so this is the real danger in all of this not being disclosed and known, particularly by policymakers and the government and Pentagon and all these folks, is that they're going to be so easily gaslit and deceived by people presenting all kinds of phenomena, plural, as extraterrestrial when it isn't, because they have mastered the ability of this, what's called stagecraft.
It's really obvious. That's why I think that they're doing the aliens anyways, because if they start tampering with this stuff, you're going to see some weird stuff happening, Obviously, some weird things are going to happen if somebody's messing with that kind of stuff. We already had CERN. We already have the Mandela effect. And that could be explained pretty easily through neurolinguistic coding. If you start tampering with the neurolinguistic code of the universal mind, it's the dialect. If you touch the dialect slightly, you could transform. When you change the neurolinguistics, you don't just change the moment, you change what the moment has always been and what it will be in the future. And you can just alter those things. It's just, I sometimes think maybe that's what when Jesus could see it, he already could tell. He knew it. He already knew he was in the psychoid all the time, because he knew he was in the psychoid. So he didn't have an illusion of a false world. He was just in the psychoid. So you would just touch on these waves. And if each wave is bumping onto each other, causing the pattern of another wave, which bounces on and causes another wave, you could just add certain submodalities to these waves. So submodalities like a table. A table exists, but whenever I said the word table, you thought of a certain table. So I am saying it must be a table, but you're saying it could be many types of tables. So the type of table is the submodality. So the modality could be hair. Hair, what type of hair exists? But you project onto it what type of hair it is, long or short, and that is a reflection of your inner psyche speaking to you in accordance with the entanglements of your emotional life. Your emotional life is entangled with physical reality through this and projected onto the modality in the form of a submodality. And that's just the way it really is. And it's super complicated to say, but if you just see it, you just go, yeah, it's right there. It's freaking obvious. It's like you could look at a picture and see. I always think of it like when we used to dream, we look back in our mind and we're dreaming and we're thinking and we're talking to God, we're talking to the universal mind, and we're dreaming a world, But now when you dream, when you have problems, when you're solving problems, when you have a problem, you look into your phone and you put the problem into your phone and you project, and the recorder of that is no longer the universal mind. It's the AI. That's probably a lot of shit. All right, thanks for watching. Just one long video. You guys can let me have one long video, right?
Okay, so there are two different groups right now that are going onto a higher timeline in this split. And I want to speak to these two different, because they're very different experiences, and each of them has to approach this a little bit differently. So one group are people who have claimed the higher timeline. They've said yes. They've said yes to their soul mission. They've said yes to raising collective consciousness, but they still have certain blockages, certain unprocessed experiences that they really need to work through right now in order to move there. That group is getting squeezed right now. That group is going through massive purging. That group is going through really tough experiences. That group is experiencing a lot of resistance. That group is just like, oh my God, like what even is going on? You're not doing anything wrong, okay? But you are asked to meet and should prioritize meeting these fears, doubts, resistance, emotions, seeing parts of yourself that you really don't want to see. It's your job to look at them and process them while holding this intention of, I know this is for me. I know I need to see this to move to a desired reality. And what I've seen is that once you really do this, once you fully meet this without avoidance, without running away, without trying to fix it, the shift on the other side is extremely, extremely fast. Now, the second group is fascinating. And I've been experiencing this, and many other people I know have been experiencing this. And these are people who have met this friction already. Maybe we met it a few weeks prior, in the previous month, or we've just been doing this deep, deep, deep work for a long time. And we've actually moved to this other reality. And what we're experiencing is actually things being really easy, things flowing super smoothly, things moving really, really, really fast, like things just popping in our reality. And we're just like, oh, okay, that's so nice. And the biggest thing here is this doubt that it's going to last. So we are used to having gone through these ups and downs so many times when you reached a bit of a higher place with all the inner work, and then it went back into the depths, and reached a little bit higher, and then it went back into the darkness. And our job here is now to actually accept and fully start integrating that this is a new normal. Things from now on will be easier. They will flow more smoothly. There will be a lot more ease and flow in general because the frequency has completely shifted, and the experience on this timeline will be very, very different from the previous one. So instead of doubts and fears that the other shoe is going to drop, we get to use the mantra, it actually gets to be this good. I love you so very much. Let me know which group you're falling into.
And so what do you think? Can you see what these people are doing? Can you feel yourself coming into a completely different awareness? We're dealing with an adaptive and evolving evil, and we're aware of its intentions, and it can still affect the future battle space because, well, that's what it is. It's a battle for the future of mankind, the soul of humanity. The adversarial evil wants to be in control, and we're moving into a time where free will is a huge thing, but they want to control that too. And the only way to do that is to give people the illusion of free choice, only for the controlling elite and the adversarial evil to seize that hope. This is where the prediction markets come into play. This is the ultimate illusion of free will and the ultimate cheat sheet for the adversarial evil. We're telegraphing the outcome that we want, and they're tailoring it to our preferences. They're not predicting anything. They're harvesting your energy.